So what happens when one of the biggest creators on the planet decides to tackle a massive global crisis? And no, we're not talking about some crazy challenge video. We're talking about building 10, yes, 10, brand new schools all around the world. So let's get into it and break down how MrBeast is aiming to change thousands of lives, one classroom at a time.
Okay, to really get why this project is so huge, you have to start with this one number, 200 million. Over 200 million kids. It's just staggering to think about. That's how many children don't have access to a safe school. I mean, that's the most basic thing you need to learn, right? A safe place to actually do it.
So when you're faced with a problem that big, where do you even begin? What can one person, even someone with a huge platform, really do to make a difference?
Well, the answer was 10, just like that. Not one school, not two, but a goal to build 10 brand new or completely rebuilt schools in communities all over the world. Talk about an ambitious goal right out of the gate for such a complicated problem.
All right, so first things first. The project had to start with the most basic, fundamental problem, the actual buildings. A lot of these schools weren't just old, they were dangerous. We're talking life-threatening. So this was about way more than just putting up some walls and a roof.
Just look at the difference. It is absolutely night and day. On one hand, you've got a school in Ghana that was in such bad shape it was literally ordered to be torn down, and another in Mexico where the roof could cave in at any second. And then, the after. You see these brand new, totally safe buildings, all furnished and ready for kids to actually learn in.
And if you want to understand the impact this had on a personal level, get this. The principal of that school in Mexico? For 10 years, a full decade, she ran the entire school out of her car. Why? Because she didn't have an office. So when the new school went up, she finally got her very own office for the first time ever.
But look, a safe building is just step one, right? It's the foundation. For kids to really succeed, they need a whole support system around them. So the next part of this whole thing was about building what you could call a complete education ecosystem. And this whole ecosystem idea, it basically rests on 4 key pillars. Think about it. It's not enough to just have a classroom. You need clean water so kids don't get sick. You need proper bathrooms for basic hygiene and, dignity. You need food so they have the energy to focus. And of course, you have to support the teachers who are making it all happen.
Okay, let's talk about that first one, clean water. In one village, the only source of water for more than 10 years was a contaminated river. The result was just devastating. Almost 80% of the people there, including the kids, had parasitic worms. So the team drilled a brand new well, and suddenly there was life-saving clean water not just for the school, but for thousands of people in the whole community.
And, hand in hand with clean water comes sanitation. So this meant building new bathrooms and sinks. It sounds simple, but it's a huge deal. It gives students dignity, and it's a massive improvement for hygiene, especially when the only other option was, using the woods.
Next up is nutrition, and the commitment here was just huge. A promise to provide free school lunches every single day for the next 5 years. And you could see the impact right away. In one place, school attendance shot up by 10% almost immediately.
And that last pillar? Supporting the teachers. Get this. In Ghana, 2 of the teachers were spending a third of their entire salary just to commute to work. A third. Plus all that time. So the project came up with a real solution. They built brand new apartments for them right next to the school. Now they can just focus on teaching.
But okay, the project didn't just stop at the school gates. The whole idea was to go even bigger and try to tackle some of the deeper, systemic issues that keep kids from going to school to begin with.
And this is where you see a really clear connection between education and child labor. Just having a safe school to go to is one of the best ways to keep kids from being forced to work. But they went a step further. The Feastables brand made a commitment to pay farmers a living wage, which gets right to the root of the problem, the economic pressure on these families.
What's also really cool is that this wasn't some one-size-fits-all plan. They adapted. For example, back in the US, they partnered with Lowe's to build this incredible outdoor learning center. It was specifically for neurodivergent students at Hope Creek Academy. Because all the data shows that a lot of these kids learn so much better when they're out in nature.
Okay, let's step back for a second and just look at the raw numbers. Because when you see the data, you really get a sense of just how massive this whole thing was. First, the cost. Over $3 million. That's how much was invested to build these 10 schools across the globe.
And what about the human impact? Well, over their lifetime, these new schools will educate more than 18,000 students. 18,000!
And remember, it wasn't just about the classrooms. The impact went way beyond that. They built new wells for whole communities, new bridges to make sure kids could get to school safely, and even provided buses. It all comes back to that idea of building a complete ecosystem.
So when you put it all together, the new buildings, that whole support ecosystem, the focus on systemic problems, it raises a really big question. What does all this mean for the future of philanthropy?
Well, one thing is super clear. This wasn't just a one-off donation. It was designed as a long-term investment. You can see the path they're trying to build. You start with safe schools today, which leads to supported students tomorrow. Those students help build stronger communities, and the hope is that it creates real, lasting change for generations to come.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of provocative question to chew on. When you think about the huge audience, the speed at which this happened, and this really holistic approach, could this kind of creator-led philanthropy actually be a new model for how we think about global development? It's a pretty powerful idea, and definitely something to think about.